Hi, my name is Maurice Ekbong. In the last video we did, we looked at a comparative analysis between the African country of Nigeria and the tiny European country of the Netherlands. We established that, particularly in the area of agriculture, the Netherlands, a small country with a population of 27.2 million, is punching above its weight, becoming the second largest exporters of agricultural commodities by value after the United States. In 2018, the Dutch, the people from the Netherlands, exported agricultural commodities valued at a whopping 90 billion euros, representing just about 20% of their total exports for the review period, which was about 450 billion euros. Compare that to Nigeria, 200 plus million people, and a land area of 34 million hectares that is arable and uncultivated. Yet in the same period, 2018, Nigeria's total exports, including oil and gas exports, agricultural primary commodity exports, exports of art and entertainment and services and whatever else we exported as a country, was only valued at 47 billion euros. We made the point that if Nigeria can raise the productivity level and efficiency systems in its exploitation of the agricultural opportunities within the value chains that exist, Nigeria's exports within the next 20 years, if we can match what the Dutch is doing 100%, our exports would be about 3.6 trillion euros, exports of agriculture alone. So we established the case that that Nigeria must focus on agriculture, as the biggest opportunities for the country lie within that. That's precisely why the founding fathers had green, white, green on the country's flag, representing 66% of agriculture. That language speaks loud and clear. So in response to some of the feedback we got, thank you so much for your feedback. One person asked that we look at examine the problem of the Dutch disease as it affects Nigeria and a number of other resource-rich countries, learning from the Netherlands how they were able to cure themselves of their Dutch disease in the 60s and 70s. So I dedicate this video to running us through a brief background of where the Dutch were after the Second World War, to the point where they reinvented themselves from the welfare states that they were in the 60s and 70s, and today they are the economic powerhouse that they are. What are the key lessons that that Nigeria and other resource-rich countries across Africa and the developing world, what are the things we can glean from the experience of the Dutch to propel us to the potential where we are? This is important, particularly considering the fact that resource-rich Africa warehouses the poorest and hungriest people on the earth. This is a Dutch disease syndrome. Africa, with all kinds of huge resources, natural, human resources, has been, punching below its weight. What can we do to lift hundreds of millions of people out of extreme poverty, achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of ending poverty by 2030, ending widespread hunger by 2030? So a quick background. What is the Dutch disease? The Dutch disease is a shorthand way of describing how the paradox that occurs when good news such as sudden discovery of natural resource reserves like oil and gas, diamonds, and so on and so forth, how that can affect a country's broader economy, how natural resource can become a cost to a nation if not properly managed. Now, the term Dutch disease was coined by The Economist in 1977 to describe the peculiar challenges that the Dutch, or the people from the Netherlands, that the country of Netherlands had in the 60s and 70s. Now, what was this problem? Now, some key highlights. The Netherlands was the last country in Europe to experience famine at the end of the Second World War. They lost about between 10 and 20,000 people to hunger, to famine. And, as a country, they said, no, this won't happen again. And then they got up after that. Of course, the first support or aid that they got for reconstructing after the Second World War was from the Americans, the Marshall Aid, that put in quite a bit of money in reconstruction of the country. Thereafter, they discovered huge gas reserves in 1959. Now, because they had a socialist government in place, the government literally rolled out the drums to provide whatever kind of welfare support that they could to their people. So from people who genuinely needed some kind of social safety net, to artists who could not sell their artworks, the government provided some kind of aid. So essentially, the government built an over-bloated welfare society that disincentivized productivity. So, in other words, it was more rewarding to claim to make social to ask for support from government, and it was to produce. So you had a whole country with everybody depending on some kind of government support or the other. Now, the Dutch realized that they couldn't continue. And then I read a quote from King Willem Alexander of the Netherlands, who said that their labor market, and I quote, "Our labor market and system of public services no longer fully meets the demands of the 21st century. The classical welfare state is slowly but surely evolving into a participation society." So they realized that they couldn't survive being a welfare state. They had to diversify. They had to creatively bring people back to the formal economy, engaging their youths, and so on and so forth. So those were some of the things we did. Now, what are the similarities that they did? What are the similarities with a country like Nigeria? Nigeria was a stable and diversified. Nigeria had a stable and diversified economy prior to the discovery of crude oil. Then Nigeria was number one in many things. You had the groundnut pyramids in the north. You had cotton from the north. You had cocoa from the south. You had palm oil from the south. You had rubber from the south. You had industry. You had hide and skin. You had all kinds of things. Nigeria was stabilizing. But when global crude oil prices began to rise steadily and sharply in the early 70s, government began to put quite a bit of money in infrastructure development, providing more government services. So a lot of people moved from rural Nigeria. There was a huge shift there was a huge migration from rural Nigeria to the urban centers in search of white-collar jobs fueled by the petroleum sector development, and a widespread abandonment, even from a policy level, of agriculture, which was a huge mistake. stick. Now, like the Dutch in the 60s and 70s, we've struggled, we've continued to struggle. All kinds of agricultural policies have been propounded by different military and democratic regimes, from Operation Feed the Nation, and so on and so forth. There've been all kinds of policies, but the policies have not yielded the kind of results that you want. So people are still very wary of going into agriculture. Now, the danger that I see is that, like the Dutch, a lot of Nigeria's youths now have an entitlement mindset, where it's more interesting for a lot of them to go into crime and criminality than to do work on the farm, than to go into agriculture. You see a spike in kidnappings. You see a spike in the number of violent crimes, that people commit just to make money. This is very dangerous for a country that the World Bank recently reported will have 96 million people living in extreme poverty by 2022. So the social challenges that can come, just like the Dutch experience, are just better imagined. So it is very important that, like the Dutch did, that we stem the tide of extreme poverty, stem the tide of unemployment, and lift up millions of people from poverty. And I surmise that there is no better way to achieve widespread end to unemployment and poverty than we can have with the exploitation of the opportunities in the agricultural value chain. Let me say a quick story. I think it was the early part of 2019. Myself and some partners brought in a technical expert from the UK to help appraise an abandoned oil palm plantation site, a 5,000 hectare oil palm plantation site in one of the states in the south. Now, I went, I took him over to the place. We flew from Lagos to the state. And then when he saw the number of youths that were just idling away, doing nothing, he said, "You guys have got quite a bit of problems on your hands. No wonder the rise in kidnapping, in armed robbery, in banditry, and so on and so forth." So how did the Dutch turn the corner, and what are the learning points for us in Nigeria and Africa? First, there were deliberate government policies to incentivize productivity, to encourage people to be productive. So rather than subsidizing laziness, we must begin to subsidize productivity and production areas. Those are the things to subsidize. They discourage leakages in the system, making people from the underground economy to come up into the formal economy. Now, there was massive focus on diversification and the exploitation of the agricultural value chain. The Wageningen University of Research, which was established in 1918, was refocused and retooled with the curriculum, the agriculture curriculum, revised and revamped to support the agribusiness ecosystem. So essentially, like we established in the last video, they created a kind of Silicon Valley with their Food Valley in the Netherlands, where WUR was providing research and science-based solutions to the thousands of enterprises that were in Food Valley. So fast forward 20 years after the Netherlands decided to focus on sustainable agriculture, and they are world leaders in agriculture today. Now, for those of us in Africa, it is important that we diversify, just like the Dutch did. We must diversify our economy. There was a study that was done where it was found that 97 developing countries that were resource rich were the worst off, even with their resources. Whether you look at Congo DRC, whether you look at Sudan, whether you look at Nigeria, many of the countries in the world with the most problems, insecurity, poverty, hunger, all kinds of negative things, are the richest. So the way to go for a country like Nigeria and many other countries is to really exploit the opportunities in agriculture. Now, let me end by saying this. Right now, Nigeria is acclaimed to be the poverty capital of the world. We're housing the highest number of poor people per capita on the planet. Many countries in Africa are the hungriest people on the planet. Africa is acclaimed to be ridden with disease and so on and so forth. All kinds of negatives are attributed to Africa. But I believe, and I know for a fact, based on studies that I have done, and many other and those that many other people have done, that Africa, Nigeria, can lift up 30 million people from poverty in the next 10 years by exploiting the agricultural value chain. Now, in the next couple of videos I will do, we'll be providing very practical solutions and approaches that policymakers, investors, business people, and every stakeholder across Africa can sit down and take a position in the humongous opportunities that Africa has. We don't have to continue as poverty capital. We don't have to continue as the hungriest people on the planet. We don't have to, continue as a place where there is widespread unemployment. We can and we must lift up millions of people out of extreme poverty to the place of security and prosperity. Thank you. I hope you'll stay tuned. Catch you.